Hello, I'm Diane Sachs. I'm the deputy leader of the Ontario Green Party. I'm an environmental and energy lawyer. I was the environmental commissioner of Ontario until Doug Ford abolished my office. And I'm the Green Party candidate in University of Rosedale. And today I have the great pleasure of talking with Owen Ardell, president of Urbane Cyclist. Hello, Owen.
Hello, Diane. So I'm one of the worker owners here at Urbane Cyclist in downtown Toronto. We're a worker cooperative, also a bike shop. We've been around since 1997. We focus mainly on kind of like urban bikes, and that was kind of why we came on the scene, because back then cycling was a little bit like sporty or like more like activity based, and we wanted to focus in on commuters and kind of the people downtown just trying to get to work.
Well, you also sell recumbent bikes, these amazing bikes, because that was the first bike I bought from you, was this gorgeous yellow recumbent that almost killed me trying to learn how to ride. But
we also do focus on lots of fun specialty bikes, cargo bikes, folding bikes. Recumbent is probably one of the standouts that not a lot of other shops deal with.
Yeah, I know. Your folks are pretty funny trying to teach me how to ride it. It's a wonderful bike story. Tell me a little bit about yourself, though, and how did you end up as president of Urbane Cyclist?
Okay, so I've always been into bikes since I was like a small child. So it's very logical that I started working in a bike shop. Urbane really was interesting to me because when you kind of dive into bikes, you start to see what you really want to be selling, what you want to be buying, what you want to be creating in bikes. I love building bikes from parts, and that was one of the allures, is they had this amazing bike supply with just like walls and cabinets full of all like the parts I could dream of. So I was really drawn to it just for the fact that they had really cool stuff, and I was like, I want to get involved here. So I ended up coming here, would have been about 7 years ago. It is a worker co-op, so as you start working here, you then can become a member, and once you've fulfilled your requirements, worked here a number of time or for a certain amount of time, you can then apply for membership, which becomes you become part of the ownership. So I've been an owner, I think, for about 4 years, and we actually had a little bit of an operational shift, and that's when I became president. President used to be a little more of an honorary role for us, and that's kind of one of the nuances of running a worker co-op. We kind of have many hats and many different roles that we fulfill to kind of just operate a business. It's not a traditional business structure, and it's a little mysterious for a lot of people.
For sure. But just to be clear, then, the only people who can be members are people who work there. Is that right?
Exactly. Yeah. So we are a worker cooperative. There's many different types of co-ops. You may have heard of housing co-ops, also like purchasing co-ops. So like MEC, for example, people often try to draw a parallel. There's a blanket statement of co-op that is kind of easy to, there's also producer co-ops, for example. Gay Leaf Foods is a producer co-op. A lot of people don't realize that. But we are a worker cooperative, meaning if you are a worker owner, you are that. You are a worker and an owner. You can't just be, oh, I'd like to be a member. Can I just apply? You have to be a full-time employee. Generally, we're a little more flexible with the full-time now, because sometimes people have other pursuits in their spare time. But yeah.
So only the workers can be members. Is every worker a member?
Not necessarily. Pretty well anyone who is a worker who's not an owner is on the track to do that. It's not a requirement. We don't insist. Some people just, hey, I just want to be employed by this shop I really like, and it might be a short-term stepping stone for some people, and we embrace that. But we definitely encourage folks to get a little more involved. And I think cooperative is a very exciting structure. It's really fun. You get to kind of be your own boss. So it's really fun. You kind of get to shape the business and kind of make your mark.
So you're right. Lots of people are really confused about, well, what does that mean to be run as a worker co-op, as opposed to, you know, there's 5 other great bike shops not that far away. What makes the co-op structure different?
That's a great question. So cooperatives, I think, well, they exist to serve a need. So our initial need we were trying to fulfill was commuting cyclists. Cycling as more like an active transportation solution. And keep in mind, this was 97, when that wasn't such like a common thing. Every bike shop you go into, you know, commuter bike, and that's a very common reason to exist. Back then, it wasn't as common. So we were really trying to fill that need. the other side of it is within our bylaws, our structure. So we are a for-profit business, which should be made clear. But within our structure, we're trying to basically offer meaningful employment to our members and also our employees in a, I don't know if I want to fully just say precarious, like kind of environment, but it's a seasonal business in a climate that a lot of people don't consider to be a bikeable, 365 day a year type of climate. So it's very seasonal. A lot of people are paid kind of below what really their skill level is. So our goal here is to basically pay a livable wage to offer meaningful employment to people who want to work in this industry. Yeah, and that was kind of why we operate in this way. As far as extending out a little further, we are also people active in the community. I know there's other chains of bike shops like, hey, some guy in Vancouver just owns a bunch of stores here because he's very well off, and good for that guy. I'm not that guy. I can't afford to just buy a bike shop, but I can afford to, work hard and participate in a really exciting and diverse team. And that's why it's kind of interesting, because I never in my wildest dreams thought, hey, I'll own my own business. But this is kind of a way you can have kind of the fun and enjoyment and fulfillment in taking part in your earning day to day.
And do people make their living mostly from the share of the profits or from a salary?
Like the primary earning would be from your wage, but profit sharing, there's a number of kind of conditions that we have to fall within depending on, I'm not going to get into the weeds too much about that, but there would be a series of kind of rules depending on how our year goes. And once we have their year end, we're going to look at those numbers and say, this much we would profit share. To make that maybe a little more clear, we do have what we call B shares here. So there is also a financial investment, which in this case, we actually take off pay. So I believe it works out to about $50 a paycheck or something. And we offer it to our new members as basically an interest-free loan. And it's paid off. So within less than 2 years, you're fully paid, and it's a $2,500 investment. That is your B share, and that's your financial investment in the co-op. And when you leave, you get that back. If we profit share, we typically flow into that. So you basically get further funds within the co-op. It's not necessarily handed out as cash.
Right. So for a person who's thinking, I'd like to work at a bike shop, why would they pick one kind of bike shop? Why would they pick a co-op rather than a conventionally owned bike shop? What's the difference for the worker?
That's a good question. I don't know if I necessarily lead with the fact that it's a co-op. I think it's an exciting way that some people do get attracted to our structure. If you're looking at working in a bike shop, I think look at what they sell and make sure you're interested, because to enjoy what you do is most important. And that's, I think, what makes someone a good employee here is, hey, do you love cycling? Do you really love bikes? Do you just is that what you love to talk about all day? Yeah, then definitely work at a bike shop. But maybe you like mountain biking. We're a downtown Toronto shop. We do a lot of touring, the recumbents, a lot of these specialty things. So definitely we have a probably wider range than other shops. So I think we do get a lot of experienced people here. I had 5 years experience at another shop before migrating. So I was that's actually what I want to be doing. And I'm kind of just selling other things that I don't really care about.
Right. So tell me more. Well, actually, first, let me ask you this. Is it different for a customer shopping at a co-op? Is it different for a customer than shopping at another kind of store?
I think it's funny. I want to say yes, but of course, it's very hard to look in as I'm often the server, not the servee. But one thing that stood out for me, and I'll speak to my experience going to other worker co-ops, is I thought, wow, these people are so friendly and so passionate. And that was my experience going to another co-op in Kitchener. Together We're Bitter, it's a brewing co-op, and I love beer. And I thought, wow, these people are really nice. And whoa, usually have a good time at a brewery, but I was just struck by how passionate and excited, and I could tell everyone wanted to be there. And I think that seems to be the general trend I find in worker co-ops is people are doing something they love. And I think people don't work in bike shops sometimes because it might be a little too precarious. They might not be able to get full-time work. And also, let's be honest, it's really undervalued. People don't value a bike mechanic the same way they do an auto mechanic and don't want to pay them as such.
That's true. That's true. So you mentioned at the beginning that there's a lot of different kind of co-ops. Do the different co-ops cooperate with each other?
I would say yes. I think what I've noticed, again, from my personal experience, is when I walk into other co-ops, I've often run into my customers like, hey, you're there's kind of like a co-op thing, and you realize when people start to like really understand co-ops, they often want to support co-ops. Like I do often hear that, hey, you're attracted here just because it's a co-op. That's really exciting. I'd say our focus is definitely within worker co-ops. We're a member of what's called CWCF, which is the Canadian Worker Co-op Federation. So that's kind of like our main like community within the cooperative kind of ecosystem. And that's probably the primary way we interact. There's actually a set of guiding principles, which I can send a link to if you want to kind of see the full write-up. But one of my favorite principle is number 6, which is supporting other co-ops. So whenever we can, we try to engage and interact and support other co-ops. You know, our coffee in our break room, that's cooperative fair trade coffee. You know, every time we have an opportunity that we can fill with a co-op, we try to.
How many worker co-ops are there in Ontario?
Oh, whew. I'd probably have to look that up. I don't know offhand. I think I'd have to refer to Canadian Worker Co-op. I know they have, I'm pretty sure they do have a list, but I don't know offhand.
I'm just trying to get an order of magnitude. Is it like 5 or 100 or 1,000?
Definitely more than 5. I don't know if we'd be up to 1,000 necessarily. I think that the funny thing about co-ops is within the cooperative sphere, like it feels like it's so like popular, but then when you step outside of it, it's just like it's so alien. I was speaking to a couple of my colleagues, my co-owners, if you will, and a few of them have taken business courses, and what was eye-opening is how rarely they actually can really speak to in a business course what a worker co-op is, what a co-op is, what its function is in capitalism. And it's like, I find that almost frightening to think like they're just overlooking this huge realm of business. And if you actually look into it, like worker co-ops and co-ops in general are more stable and more successful generally than traditional business structures.
Do you think that, well, let me try this again. If we had better government support for co-ops, what role do you think they can and should play in growing a sustainable economy?
That's a great question. I think the way I would look at it is it kind of has to come from the ground up, and I would see the starting point as education, like making sure it's actually reflected in education. You don't actually hear about co-ops. I never really knew what a co-op was as far as like a worker co-op until I really got involved in one. I've lived in like housing co-ops before when I was younger, but you know, I was like, well, I see co-op, it's on taxis, it's on buildings. I don't really know what co-op means. It just seems to float around and people are confused and kind of fearful of it. I think that's really the lack of understanding is I think where I trace a lot of the kind of mystery around co-ops. I think that's where we need to strengthen is just the understanding, the education, and education going further even to like people in business realm, understanding that it is a valuable way to run an institution and a successful business, you know?
So if one of the reasons for this podcast is to let people know more about the kinds of businesses that we have in University Rosedale. If someone else was interested in learning more about how to have a worker co-op that they're interested in, where should they start?
How to start a worker co-op?
Yes, how to start one, how to run one,
yeah.
Who to talk to.
I think the best resource would be CWCF, Canadian Worker Co-op Federation. They actually do have a series of grants you can apply for. Funny enough, our longest standing member here at Urbane is actually the current president of that federation. They often do get on video chats just like we're doing here and kind of hammer out some of the details, the potential, and what they can kind of do to start a co-op. So that's probably my best first step would be hit up CWCF. They're a great resource. They have a wonderful website. They also actually do, well, pandemic aside, they would normally do basically like gatherings, or we're actually going to have a nice conference, and you get to meet all these people within the kind of cooperative sphere, people who establish and kind of problem solve with co-ops, and then it's other people running similarly structured businesses, which is a really great learning experience.
So what other co-ops are there in University Rosedale? I mean, there's Karma Co-op.
Karma.
Anything else in University Rosedale that people
Um,
can eye out for?
there's Kaya, which is Come As You Are. They are a sex positive shop down in Kensington. They just recently moved into the area.
Okay.
I guess is a little further east. There's the Carrot Common. They are also a cooperative.
And they have delicious food.
They have delicious food. Thinking offhand, those are the ones that stand out. There's also one of our popular partners, pardon me, would be Send It Courier. They're all around downtown, and their range is like basically all of Toronto. And they're a bike courier service. They're wonderful and super fast. Those are all the ones that come to mind that I probably know offhand.
Okay, good to know. Very good to know. So let's switch from co-ops for a moment, just for finish up about bikes.
Sure.
What a great year it's been for bikes. What's it been like at your end?
I'll say it's been quite intense. I think it's kind of an exciting time to be in the bike industry. It's also, I think at face value, people think, wow, what a great year. It's mixed. I'm really happy to see a lot more people on bikes and taking up cycling again, because it's kind of been beyond me that more people haven't done this. Toronto is an extremely bikeable city, and we've just been seeing more and more great infrastructure come in. On the flip side, due to the pandemic, that's why we have a high demand. People are looking to socially distant exercise, but this has also created limitations as far as production. So we've seen factories not be able to run at full capacity when the demand is at an all-time high. So it's kind of a mixed blessing, because we have certain people within the supply chain unable to work at full capacity and unable to meet this kind of extraordinarily high demand. At this point, we just try to kind of manage everyone's expectation and make sure we offer a good customer experience, because I think that's the best we can do, is try to make sure when people reach out, we do our best to help them find the parts they need to fix their bike, help offer good quality repair service, and also just like make sure they feel heard and seen when they call and email our shop. Sadly, we can't have walk-ins like we used to, but hopefully that'll change.
Yeah, I hope so too. So there must be a lot of people who want bikes and can't get them.
I think there is quite a high level of that. I know last year, I think we upgraded our phone system to like a digital service, which was kind of a funny timing because it meant we had basically infinite amounts of lines. So regardless of how many phones you were answering, they would not stop ringing. I did hear feedback that we were one of the only shops that would answer the phone. I know other shops sometimes would take full days to say, no phone calls, no anything, we need to catch up. And I think it was although it was stressful and trying at times working through the pandemic, I'm very happy with our team. It's really kind of heartening to see like your colleagues, your coworkers, your co-owners kind of come together through kind of challenging times. And it's also really positive seeing how well we can kind of operate as a business and feel incredibly safe and make sure our customers feel safe while still offering good service.
So is the bike supply picking up yet?
I think it's a little all over the map. It's the hardest thing to do right now is actually forecast. We've created lots of orders, for example, and some things we thought were like, oh, we're going to be waiting months for this. They just appear. We're like, oh, I guess we get our order. That's great. But we don't really get notice. Things just turn up, and we sift through our emails and see, oh, someone asked about this last July. Let's see if they still want it, just in case, before we put it online and kind of like see what happens. Because it's kind of a funny thing. People see the stock pop up and then the phones ring off the hook all day, just trying to keep everyone's expectations in check. Yeah, it's very stimulating. It's exhausting. It's kind of fun, and yeah, I think I'm happy that I've been able to work. I consider myself very lucky because I know many people have been laid off and have been unable to operate their businesses or have had to close indefinitely due to health concerns. And we have been we're considered an essential service, seeing we are centered around our repair shop. And we do have a lot of customers being down on college. We have lots of folks who, are hospital workers coming to us for repairs, making sure they can safely get to their job, who want to avoid transit, which is unsurprisingly during a pandemic.
Well, Owen Ardell, President of Urbane Cyclists, thank you so much for joining me today. And thank you for keeping so many of us on our 2 or 3 wheels, getting around the city with our bikes more or less holding together throughout the pandemic. And thank you for the lovely yellow recumbent that you sold me. Great to have you with us. And I hope that this exciting game of Tetris becomes a little simpler for you as the year goes on.
Can only hope.
All right. Thanks so much. Join us again in another few weeks. We'll have another great green business from University of Rosedale.